welcome everybody to the Thursday edition of the Daily Cheat Sheet. And we'd like to make a little bit of an apology. We might have had some technical difficulties on yesterday's episode, but we are in the middle of fixing it because that's what we do. Right away, I want to get into the news, but it's important to really look at what's going on. And we're watching and we're witnessing a lot of revisionist history going on among many in the I hate using that word, the woke right movement. And it's almost like, I'm not sure people have ever seen the show Sliders, but it was an amazing concept show go on. And it was where he slid into a world that the Russians actually won the Korean War and then took over parts of America. Well, Tucker Carlson is living in that world of some sort of delusional revisionist history. He went after Mark Levin yesterday, and amazingly, he only went after Mark Levin for being at the White House. I guess Levin was there talking about Iran, and the conversation was leaked. That's first of all, but he went after him ruthlessly on X. And if anybody knows Tucker Carlson, he never tweets. And everything he said was lies. It was revisionist history of the better part of 45 years since the Ayatollahs took over. And I just want to remind people his whole essence of his argument is we don't do regime change. We're in this Middle East mess because Jimmy Carter allowed regime change. The Shah of Iran, who they used to say Beirut was the Paris of the Middle East, the Shah begged for help, and Carter told him to stand down and not mow down the Ayatollahs and the mullahs. Imagine how great of a world we'd be if the Shah did that and the Ayatollahs didn't exist. That region might be beautiful democracy. And just to Tucker's asinine point, he forgets about the base in Beirut, 283 deaths. He forgets about the embassy being taken over. He forgets about all the missile attacks. And it's absolutely disgusting go on.
I like that you say that he forgets. I'm going to go ahead and say he didn't forget anything because there's not an honest bone in his body when it comes to this. Let's not pretend this is about policy. Okay. Tucker calling Levin a war lobbyist or whatever he said, it's not criticism. What he's doing is he's essentially branding through his new, and I'm going to say alleged, right? We always have to say alleged, through his new Qatari, Russian, Belarusian financiers, or whoever happens to suddenly be changing Tucker's mind on everything. He's speaking in code. He didn't forget anything. He's saying, see, the neocons are back and they brought Israel with them. You know, Levin sounds kind of Jewy, doesn't it? It's lazy. It's cynical. It's anti-Semitic. It's racist. It's got a whiff of every dark thing you can imagine. Tucker's not coming at this honestly. He's coming at this ideologic.
No, you're brilliant summation on that. And Mend, Levin has been nothing but a patriot. He served the Reagan administration under Ed Meese. He's just a good guy, and you could disagree with him. The way Tucker is going after him is old school anti-Semitism. And I don't want to even bring Judaism and Israel into this because the Iran thing has nothing to do with that. And even in Tucker's analysis, where he brings up that Iran has ballistic missiles, intercontinental ballistic missiles can reach 3,500 miles. His whole train of thought makes no sense other than to condemn Levin and to root for the isolationist faction of the American government.
Tucker's stance exposes his newfound alliances. You cannot possibly be America first and advocate to not intervene in Iran when Iran chants death to America and they're trying to get a nuclear bomb. It's that simple. These guys have killed Americans. They have American blood on their hands. Like you said, the Beirut bombing and many others. And for us not to go there and smack those little rats back into their little rat holes, or back into the Stone Age, if need be. But they cannot be allowed to attain nuclear weapons. They're going for it. They've been sneakily trying to build that bomb for a long time. And I applaud the administration's attempt at diplomacy, but whatever it takes, they need to be prevented. And Tucker's stance is asinine. It makes no sense. If you care about America and if you care about your children and your children's safety, then you would not be advocating for no intervention. You would be saying, do everything you got to do. And I say this again and again and again. Try diplomacy, and if that runs out, You bomb away.
Well said, both of you. And again, though, Golan, I just want to get into this. And I know I went on in the beginning because I'm extremely passionate about this subject. This is the history of the past 45 years in that region. It's important for people to understand that, because when they hear somebody like Tucker, they're not doing their due diligence of actually studying. They're taking Tucker at its word. So I say to people, do the same with us. Don't take us for our word. Google, look up what Iran looked like pre the Shah getting kicked out and having to escape to America. So do your due diligence. But what Tucker is doing and what many people online are doing is extremely dangerous. I have never witnessed such, in my life, distortion of a brief history of time. And they do it because they know nobody is going to challenge them and look them up. Go on. Final thoughts on this.
Absolutely. Yeah. The look them up is the key to the whole thing, because them taking Tucker at his word means they're taking Tucker at his current word at this particular moment in time. Don't forget, Tucker used to be the guy who raged against elite cowardice, right? That was his thing. He always was talking about that on both sides of the aisle. Now he's dangerously close to becoming the poster child for elite cowardice, just preaching isolationism, sipping his bourbon in his studio. This is a guy who is not, it's not just that he's dishonest. You can see both faces on the internet. So it's not that I need to take his word today. 2 seconds on YouTube, and I can see that this isn't what he thought 5 seconds ago. In fact, you can see the exact moments where things dropped, where he showed up in Russia. Things changed a little bit, and suddenly he's going, this is a beautiful train station. Russia really knows what they're doing. It's like, whoa, that wasn't the guy I listened to 3 days ago. Iran isn't a theory, okay? It's a threat. And it's not about war hawks versus peace lovers. It's about clarity versus cowardice. And if he is pretending that that's not what we're talking about, then he's not standing with America. He's not standing with liberty. What he's standing with is whoever's writing him the biggest check. And Mark Levin is beyond reproach when it comes to that. He's proven that over and over again.
I think it's important to put that statement that Tucker made in context. He went to Russia. He threw a lot of softball questions at Putin. Putin himself later said that he thought that Tucker would be more of a challenging interview, and it wasn't. But the comments that he was making about the train station, I agree with that. You go there, they have law and order. We had defund the police. We had criminals are heroes. So I think that thing you cannot hold against him. He was making a valid point there. I think that the left and the media in general ran away with that one and tried to smear his entire thing, saying that he's praising Russia. I think he was highlighting one specific instance. I'm not defending the entire interview. I think he did go over there and brown nose a whole bunch, and he came back with some weird ideas. I think what's even weirder is the Qatari money that's flowing into his organization, his network that he put together. That's where it's getting really weird, because you would think that Tucker, with a guy with that reputation and the amount of time that he had on air, that he wouldn't sell himself out so cheaply, but he did. And now he's advocating for the guys that are threatening to bomb America. Forget about Israel. Forget about our troops in the Middle East that they have attacked again and again and again. They're talking about bombing us, death to America, and they want to nuke. No way.
I mean, and just
I'm sorry. Wait a second. I can't let that be the last word on Tucker at the train station. I'm sorry. Because Tucker at the train station is basically like going into Auschwitz and looking at the offices of the officers and going, man, these offices are gorgeous. Hey, they really know what they're doing. These interior designers, wow, well, I guess Auschwitz is a beautiful place, and then leaving, because it means you ignore all the rest of the context of what's happening around it. That's true. The train station, by the way, I've been there. The train stations are gorgeous. A lot of stuff is really gorgeous. But if you are ignoring the authoritarianism that creates a situation where they can create marble train stations while all these other people are being oppressed, while slave labor is being used, while dissent is being crushed, all of the other stuff, I can't allow that to stand. That Tucker knows better than that.
I think you're reading too much into that. So nobody's justifying the Communist Party, the Russians that have used slave labor and gulags and all that stuff throughout their history. I think on the very basic surface of it, in New York, you have passengers being lit on fire and being killed on the trains on a daily basis, people getting stabbed and slashed, and these criminals just get away with it. It's a revolving door. of justice system where they go
I just
in
think
one
we're
day
talking about two different things.
and they come out the next day. And then in Russia, you have train stations that are really well protected. Let's just say they're safe, and they happen to
I,
be beautiful.
I
Great.
just think we're talking about two different things. I'll let this go, but I just think we're talking about two different things because that's like me going to North Korea and being like, oh man, Kim Jong Un knows how to throw a parade. Like, I just don't feel comfortable.
I hear that, but I don't think it's I don't think that in particular was a comment on the entire Soviet system. I think that just had to do with law and order, and I agree with that. We let things go. We don't protect our most vulnerable. We protect criminals here, and that's got to change. So for that statement, I
Agreed
would.
on that 100%. And to Judah's point from earlier, I think the reason why it bothers me is not because he said it. At the moment he said it, I didn't have that reaction because I'd been watching Tucker and I'd been listening to Tucker. It's what happened afterwards. It's what I saw in terms of an ideological shift. And then I started to realize, oh, that wasn't Tucker saying something about crime. That was Tucker trying to appease the people who are now going to go ahead and bankroll his life.
Who knew Alex Jones would become the centrist? I mean, it's sort of a fascinating shift in what's happened in social media world, where Alex Jones looks mild in thought compared to so many. Okay, I want to move on, guys. To I think it's extremely important that Donald Trump brought back the nation banning. I believe it's 19 nations that he's banned, put on the list from coming into the United States. Good for him. These are terrorist states, and he does not want these people getting into colleges in the United States. And that is extremely important after what we're witnessing. It's extremely important after we witnessed yesterday 2 Chinese nationalists being arrested for agro-terrorism go on, that we actually shut this down.
I have never had a problem with saying these countries ship over people who overwhelmingly are looking to destroy the American way of life, to hurt Americans. I don't really think I have a problem with people from Chad and Myanmar not being able to hop into the country easily. Let's go through. This is for our listeners. Let's go through the list of the 12 countries. Okay,
Thank you.
Afghanistan, Myanmar, Chad, Republic of the Congo, Equatorial Guinea, Eritrea. By the way, Eritrea is like the worst place in the world according to everything that you read in terms of authoritarianism. Haiti, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and Yemen. And then there's 7 additional where there's partial restrictions with Burundi, Cuba, Laos, Sierra Leone, Togo, Turkmenistan, and Venezuela. I don't think this is a major issue. I think that there is justification for this. I think there was justification the last time he did a travel ban and everyone
Well,
flipped
explain
it.
that. Explain that this ban was actually in before Biden came in, and then Biden actually reversed the ban.
Correct. Correct. So there's a threefold thing happening. We have things that are happening related to terrorism. We have things that are happening in terms of inadequate vetting of people coming from those countries. And then we have a problem of the lack of cooperation when it comes to deportation. Those 3 elements are the things that make these countries the biggest problem. Terrorism being number 1 on the list. Mend is always talking about the sheer number of people who came over the border, many of which we don't even know about, as you pointed out in our last conversation. And who knows how many of them are terrorists? Who knows how many of them are in sects that are just sleeper cells right now, waiting to be activated, as Mend has pointed out many times. And just in case you all thought Mend was a lunatic, yesterday, these 2 Chinese nationals walking in with biological weapons, I think says, hey, wake up. It's not just a theory.
Man.
That was me defending you, men, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you. I absolutely agree with it. Listen, we should be taking in the best and the brightest, the people that could help build this nation. We spent hundreds of years building this amazing experiment, the American democracy. We should be continuing that, but we are not obligated to take in the worst of the worst. That is not what we signed up for. We signed up for bringing in some refugees that want to escape their hellhole and they want a better life. They want the American dream. We don't want people that will come here and recreate the hellhole that they had back at home. The Ilhan Omars of the world that still pledge allegiance to their Somali home countries. We don't need that. We don't want that. I think they should actually change the law and not allow anybody to hold elected office if you're not a natural born citizen. And talking about natural born citizen, there are some things coming up before the Supreme Court this week that is going to help us define what that is. namely birthright citizenship. And that's going to be before the Supreme Court this week. We hope that they vote correctly on this one. And we could dive into what the 14th Amendment is about and where it gets murky and where I think they should come down on this one.
First of all, it's extremely important that you say, I love the word that you said, hope, that we have to hope that the Supreme Court, which is obviously more on the conservative side, but again, as I've brought up, we can never count on this Supreme Court. They just do not do what Democrats do. And honestly, they're not following the rule of law half the time. I got to say, John Roberts and Amy Coney Barrett seem to be reading different law books than people like Alito and Clarence Thomas. And I have to say, Alito is probably one of the smartest men in America. But I want to get back to this a little bit. I don't want to drop this because Trump also put a ban on international visas for new students at Harvard University. So this all goes into the same thing of birthright and all these different things. But I want to get back to this Tucker thing because I find this sort of interesting. He's pro banning these countries, right? He's pro banning Iran from people coming here. So he's essentially saying, he's not essentially saying, he's saying they're dangerous. So on one hand, he's saying Iran is extremely dangerous. We shouldn't let them on our shores, many of them. But on the other hand, Golan, they're not dangerous at all. Well, which one is it, Tucker?
Well, look, we can continue going back and forth on Tucker's schizophrenia over and over again. Everything that he does is ideological. So whatever is going to be most expedient. The idea that we don't want to go to war with Iran, sure, that's what the Ayatollahs wrote down for him to repeat. So that's good. And then on the other hand, he can say this other thing to make him seem like I'm still America first, and that way his legitimacy can remain in order. It's all just crass bullshit that he's doing. All he's trying to do is retain his audience, retain an air of legitimacy while really doing the bidding of the mullahs. So this does not surprise me that these are the two different ways that he's going, which are different from one another. And ultimately, let's be realistic. I know that people love to use the term Muslim ban. The thing that people don't realize is, beyond the fact that there are countries on there that are not Muslim, that, okay, 10 of the 12 countries on the list are Muslim majority countries. But maybe that says more about Islam than it does about the ban, right? Maybe instead of us clutching our pearls and calling racism every 2 seconds, we can say that perhaps if you have a failing state that is succumbing to terrorists and just becoming terror safe havens, maybe that's your fault that we don't want you to send your people to us. That doesn't mean that we're racist. It means that we are taking care of our own, which is, by the way, the government's job.
Well said. And Mend, I want to get back to your point, just so people understand this. Since Trump has been in office, judges have issued 40 nationwide injunctions about things that he's passed. That's 40 nationwide injunctions that the Supreme Court has to hear. And one of the things the Supreme Court, the way I'm reading this story, the Supreme Court could block Trump's birthright citizenship order, but limit nationwide injunctions. So this is, I think this might be the busiest docket the Supreme Court has had in Supreme Court history. 40 cases I mean, this is insane. Not all of them have hit the Supreme Court because appellate courts allowed Trump to move forward. But the amount of cases the Supreme Court is hearing is insane.
There's another one this morning. A judge blocked Trump's rapid deportation of the Colorado fire bomber's family. So, yes, the Supreme Court does have a lot of things to look at, and I hope they can block the nationwide injunctions and these district judges that are just upending U.S. policy. It makes no sense. We didn't elect these judges to do that. So hopefully the Supreme Court could sort that one out. There's 2 other things on the docket this week that are the big ones. One of them is birthright citizenship. The second one is the blocking of, or they're going to hear the case where the state of Tennessee has banned gender affirming care, or as we like to call it, gender mutilation. So children should not be put under the knife because they're having some sort of confused ideas about their sexuality. They should be allowed to live through their little tomboy stages. And if they get to the point where they're old enough to drink, to buy a firearm, to drive a car, to make life-altering decisions like get a tattoo, that's when they should be allowed to permanently alter their bodies. when they do these, even the drugs that they're doing, the puberty blockers, it permanently alters their body. And there are a lot of kids that wind up turning 21 and realize, oh shit, that was a phase. And now they are permanently altered and they can't have kids. Their reproductive organs are just messed up. So I agree with that one. I think they should block that, just like we'd block everything else for children. And children are not mentally capable of making those life-altering decisions. So again, hope the Supreme Court comes down on the right side of that one. As far as birthright citizenship, so Trump said it, but he didn't articulate it well. The 14th Amendment is a clause that grants citizenship to those born in the US. There's a phrase in there that says, subject to the jurisdiction thereof. And what that means is that if there's an enemy invasion and they have kids in the US, those are not US citizens. If there's a diplomat here that is not subject to our laws and has kids here, they are not US citizens. If people come here illegally, or if they come here as tourists and they are doing this birthing tourism where they're 6 months pregnant, they come here and then they have kids, they should be counted in that category of people that are ineligible to get birthright citizenship. I think that it's a very clear case. I know that there's ideological views on both sides that are going to make this very murky, but on its most basic premise, the 14th Amendment was really put in place to allow slaves and the children of slaves that were brought here against their will. And that is a major point here, is that they didn't elect to come here. They didn't try to come here illegally. They were forced here. They were brought here, and they should be citizens. That does not include people that are breaking the law, climbing across the border, and then having kids here and saying, whoa, anchor baby, I'm here to stay. And then you bring over chain migration, you bring over all their cousins and relatives from whatever country they're from. That is not the spirit of the law. That is not the way it should go down. And it's going to be interesting to see how our bright Supreme Court justices rule on this one.
Okay, moving on. I think this is just happening. President Trump was prompted to respond to Elon Musk's criticism of the big, beautiful bill. Hitting back, he said, Elon needs to concentrate on making cars. His cars aren't selling too well. Some people say he wouldn't sell any without taxpayers giving their hard-earned money to Tesla as tax credits. I call him greedy Elon, folks. And it's on.
Oh, well, this just happened while we were on the line, I guess. Yeah.
Yes.
Man, well, I guess we've bridged the gap into them finally going after each other personally. Yesterday, one of the things that we said specifically was, well, at least these two trolls who love going after other people and attacking ad hoc and all of that haven't done that. Well, that lasted 24 hours. It's a shame. Honestly, Elon Musk, I really do believe has been a great patriot. I think he's done a lot for this country. I think not only his purchase of Twitter, now X, and which, the way you say it, Judah, is that he saved the Constitution. I think he saved the public square. I think he saved free speech. So him taking the time off to go into Doge, I understand there's also, we can argue, and I've heard the argument, it's an ego play and he enjoyed holding up the chainsaw and being the meme and calling it Doge and all of that. But this is also the richest man in the world who is running literally space exploration companies that decided to take time to focus on making America less in debt and looking at the corruption that existed within the government. This is something that also makes him a great patriot. I think that right now, Trump is reacting because the big, beautiful bill is really important to him. And this is an emotional reaction from a guy who sometimes lashes out. I wish it wasn't happening, frankly.
I want to get to Musk's reaction to this. He wrote, without me, Trump would have lost the elections. Dems would control the House and the Republicans would be 51-49 in the Senate. So that's Musk's reaction.
And it's true. Without Musk, Trump would have lost the election. And I think this whole thing is pretty much a non-story. Big deal. So they're at odds over a bill. A bill. If they were both smart, they would both just shut it down, not continue this little spat, especially publicly. They both have egos. Whatever. I think it's a non-story. I don't even think it's a big deal. So what? Let's say Elon Musk does not come back to help the administration on anything going forward. The country as a whole, with its secure borders and getting rid of all these violent criminals, is ahead of where it would have been had he not gotten involved. So I don't see the point in wasting a lot of time on a little love quarrel between two dudes that used to get along.
Well, I think it's important to remember that they didn't always get along. And I think it's also important to realize that Trump has been on really good behavior for the better part of 36 to 48 hours, as Elon Musk has been blasting on X, the big, beautiful bill, and many people in the Republican Party. So I got to give Trump kudos on this for pausing for 48 hours. But at a certain point, you have to protect your own legislation. And Trump, even in his response, didn't go full on Trump. So I applaud him for his restraint. And it's sort of ironic, Golan, that Musk is the one that's X-raging and Trump is not. It's the most fascinating thing to watch. It's like role reversal from 2016 to 2020.
These are two guys who both are masters of the universe. They both are not used to having other people have any power over them. It's like the line from A Few Good Men, where Jack Nicholson is a brigadier general, and he says, "Until they elect some broad president, I'm going to have to keep taking cold showers." Like that's essentially what we have here: is two guys who don't like being told no, who don't like having a boss, both kind of being lashed out at as if they do. And I think to Men's point, I think it's a really important point. This is nonsense. This is gossip girl shit. And I understand the media loves to show anytime
Yes.
they are going at each other, and they love to show anytime Trump's in trouble, or now Musk, of course, has his own group of haters that love to join the chorus. But really, it's a waste of everybody's time.
And I think that's why it's so important that I brought up this story because your both of your analysis of the situation is exceptional and it's what people actually need to hear. This story is getting bigger. The White House is going after Musk. The White House principal deputy secretary Harrison Fields told the Alex Marlow show, and Alex Marlow is Breitbart. Musk called Trump's landmark reconciliation bill pork-filled congressional spending Monday after leaving the government. This
Does
story
anybody
is
know what Musk's issue with the bill is? Do you guys know what the issue is?
no, it's
No,
all in rumors.
it's all
So
right. He has done laundry list stuff, but he hasn't gotten into specifics. He's like, this is handouts, this is pork, this is that, but he hasn't said this line item, this line item, this line item. So the
so
assumptions are it's about green energy credits and all the rest, but we really don't.
there's the Office of Congressional Budgeting, I
The
believe it
COB.
is.
It's the COB,
Yes.
and the COB has been incorrect many times. Just for people that they understand, the COB is very impartial in their billing and due diligence.
And that's the point, is that on the first Trump tax cut, whatever bill, their numbers were off by $500 million or more. The discrepancy here is administration saying it's going to save the US deficit $1.5 trillion, and the whatever office that is saying that it's going to cost us $2 trillion. So there's a discrepancy. On one side, you have an organization that's staffed with left-leaning anti-Trump people that are constantly getting it wrong when they claim that his policies are going to cost us a lot of money. And on the other side, you have the administration saying, look, this is something we've been working on for a while. We want to get it over the line. It's not perfect, but at least it's something, and it's going to save us money. And there's a lot of tax breaks in there, and that's what we want. We want to get to zero tax. That would be ideal. It's done in a lot of the oil rich countries where they just supplement everybody's income and they don't charge tax. I'd love for America to get there. It would be great for all Americans to get to zero tax. Those that say tax the rich never take into account that the rich pay 80% of the tax. And if you tax the rich, you're going to wind up like London, where they started taxing the rich and the rich have all fled.
And by the way, just so people know, and they haven't looked at this bill, but the center, and I'm not going to get their name right. I'll put up a link, but basically the 1% get the lowest tax cuts. It's the middle class that gets the highest tax cuts. That's just a fact, no matter what people say. Golan, my biggest fear with this rift is I agree. I don't think Trump gets elected if Musk doesn't have X. I just don't. And my biggest fear is that we're going to be watching an echo chamber of talking points that helps bring down Republicans, especially coming up in the midterms. Elon Musk is an extremely powerful man. We can't deny that. And by hook or by crook, they have to figure out a way to reconcile this because this is a bigger story than we're actually getting into for so many other reasons. But we finally broke through the media wall with X. If we lose that, we're back 12 years.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing that we have to remember that while this is, as we said, kind of rumor mill, gossip girl bullshit. The big problem is that these two men, whether we like them or not, whether you are on the side of them politically or not, they both have big egos. And when they see the media pushing this stuff and people commenting and everybody taking sides, they are going to lash out. They're retaliatory people. And that's why Musk had to, Trump had to say something and then Musk had to say something. And now Trump will respond again and then Musk will respond again. And this sort of thing can cycle out of control. One of the reasons why we keep emphasizing that this actually is nothing and that it should go away is because we don't want that cycle to begin. The people who are running the media right now, who are running kind of the mainstream media, they're excited about inciting this kind of rhetoric, right? They want this to happen because they know exactly what you're saying will eventually come, which is at some point, Musk will say, I'm done helping. And if he's done helping, that means Twitter or X is done helping. And if that happens, Trump is in trouble. And the entire agenda calls into question.
Golan, we're finding out now this is a far bigger story with Elon Musk and Donald Trump. Donald Trump is claiming it's about the EV credits. Elon Musk is saying, no, I don't care about the EV credits. I care about the pork in the spending bill. And I actually believe Elon Musk. I don't think he cares about the tax credits necessarily. Look how much money he's been willing to lose with the election and buying X. So I have to take him at his word for it. The one thing I will challenge him on is he's bringing up prior tweets from President Trump in 2013. Now, that's a sort of bad way of going about it because Trump could then say, well, you voted for Obama in 2016 and the childish games are on. So grow up, guys. We need both of you.
Yeah, what's been happening since we initially started this conversation is that as we were recording, this whole thing started. We actually broke in and said, okay, I know we have other topics to talk about, but we have to cover this right now. Since then, it's continued as we predicted that it would. Trump saying that Musk received the bill, went over it line item by line item, knew everything, and really approved of it until 5 seconds after he left the administration. Musk now shot back, that's not true. They handed it to me in the middle of the night in a clandestine garage for 7 seconds. Everything's an exaggeration with everybody. And basically, they're just countering each other's stories. I happen to agree with you. I think that in this particular case, Musk's critique of the big, beautiful bill are not because he's mad about the tax credits, and I don't think it's personal. I think there's a lot of stuff in this particular bill that it's pork. I mean, there really is, because adding $2.4 trillion to the national debt is not draining the swamp.
Supposedly.
Okay, fine. Let's assume that the DOB is wrong. Okay. And by the way, they've been wrong many times in the past. These are the people that said Obamacare would pay for itself and all of that. So we know that they don't necessarily always have their perfect hat on. But even if it's a little less than that, it's still so much money. And that amount of money is not draining the swamp. And I know that Mend would say, don't let perfect get in the way of good, get something passed and then fix it along the way and all of that. But this is so massive that beyond some of the stuff that is worrying Musk, like we talked about gutting American energy innovation and all of that, this is not fiscal responsibility. And I know that Musk is reaching back to old tweets from how many years ago?
11 years ago.
11 years ago, saying, look, Trump wouldn't want to raise the budget to that extent. Look, bottom line is in 11 years, a lot's happened. I understand coming off of what the Biden administration just did, where they were passing bill after bill with they're naming them cute, clever things. Oh, debt reduction, this and that, when it turns out it's debt inflation. I understand that right now we have to counteract certain things that have been put in place. And 11 years is a long time for a lot of that stuff to happen. He's not totally wrong either, though, is that Trump used to be a guy who would have pushed back against this in a different kind of way. And right now he's saying, don't worry about the debt. We hit, what was it, 12 trillion in debt in 4 years? That is a lot of money. And if we are not careful, that's national suicide if we're really talking about ever wanting to pay that down. There are many people who say, you know what, the concept of paying down the debt, it's a pipe dream. It's never going to happen. So let's just get done what we got to get done. We'll print more. We'll do this. We'll do that. I think it's a dangerous way for us to live because if we are meant to be the international hegemon, right, the dollar is meant to be the symbol of currency in the world. We can't dilute our own currency to the point where it's meaningless.
Perfectly said. And again, I go back to a lot of this stuff could have been done behind closed doors. They could have worked it out. They should work it out. And it's really time to be for both of them to grow the F up. And I mean that. And again, going back to 2013, I probably said so many things that are contrary to what I believe in now. And I think most people could say the same thing. That's called evolving. Our thoughts, our beliefs evolve over time. And if they don't, you have a problem, because that's the whole point in everything, is that we grow as humans.
There is one more thing. Whether I agree with Musk or not, whether you agree with Musk or anybody else, it's a little late for the critique. Do I agree that the bill needs a rewrite? I happen to. Yes, I think that we need to be careful that we don't just become a government that spends everything on interest payments. I think that's incredibly dangerous. But at this point, everything that is built into our economy is with the assumption that this bill is passing. And if this bill doesn't pass, we are going to see a cratering that is going to cost us not only our agenda, but our agenda for a long time in the future. And I think that is where the danger really lies. And if Musk is serious and is actually trying to affect change and is not just trying to undercut and not just trying to call out, and it's not just a tantrum, then he should have done this behind closed doors where things could have actually been tweaked. Now it's too little, it's too late, and it's time to just stop talking about it in public.
Yeah, and this is the difference between Democrats and Republicans, is they do everything behind closed doors. Republicans do everything out loud, and it always comes out as a mess.
100%. And I'm tired of it.
And go on, finally, we are witnessing timelines that cease to exist. Just like we brought up with Tucker revisionist history, the media is doing the same thing with erasing stories.
Absolutely. And as we've talked about in the past, when they do decide to erase stories, which is what they usually do instead of retracting them, they're doing it just under the guise of disappearing the story. Or if the retraction comes up, it's a blip, it's a tweet, it disappears into the ether, nobody even knows about it. Look no further than, again, the Israelis being accused of shooting the Palestinians in Gaza. What continues to happen is, like, I'll just use the BBC as an example. They said, you know what? We retract the whole thing, our bad. Within 1 hour, there was another new news story up saying Israeli shot new ones. So it's as if each time they go, okay, you caught us. We lied about that one. We incited violence. We incited hatred. Great. No, that one's not on the ballot anymore. Here's a new one. And they keep doing this. And it happened again now. They came out not long ago, a couple of these major heavy hitter news sites, and said, we retract. The evidence does not line up. We're very sorry. And then almost immediately, a new news story popped up. So CNN said, we're retracting this. And I just, while we were doing this episode, looked at CNN's homepage, and there was a new piece of information. A video just surfaced that purports to show Israelis shooting at Palestinians. It's like, isn't that the conversation we just had 5 seconds ago, where Hamas lied to you and you printed it uncuriously, then you retracted it, then Hamas lied to you about a new situation, you printed it, then retracted it unceremoniously, and now you're doing it again? It's not that you don't learn your lesson. It's that the lesson isn't trying to be learned. You are doing this deliberately. You want to incite violence. This is no longer about responsibility. You are now doing the job of whoever your handlers are.
And for the record, the Times of Israel did that yesterday too. They put out a story because they're having issues with the government. And it literally, within 5 seconds of me texting you the story, it changed the story to be totally the reverse of what the story was. I'm not kidding, within 5 seconds. I just want to close this up because Jason brought it up, and we'll discuss this more tomorrow. The German Foreign Minister, Johann Wadephul, says the European Union must maintain its cooperation with Israel. He affirms Germany will keep supplying weapons and warns that recognizing a Palestinian state now would send the wrong signal. Thank you, Germany.
Yeah, thank you, Germany. I hadn't even seen a story. It must have happened also while we were recording here. That is finally some moral clarity. And you know what? I'm not surprised. It's coming from the Germans. I happen to have a German passport myself, and I will tell you that my people know what we're doing. There you go.
It came from our source, Jason.
Thank you, Jason, for pointing it out to us as well.
And thank you, everybody that's on our chats and our groups that are constantly feeding us information that we have to disseminate. So thank you. And on that note, well said, both of you. I want to thank everybody for all the downloads on Apple, on Spotify, YouTube. You could find us, Substack, X, Instagram. You could find us all over at the Daily Cheat Sheet. And I just want to say have a great morning, afternoon, and night world, wherever you are.